Ready to start the broadcast.
Rise and shine, sleepyhead. It's a brand new day.
Good thing that I don't have dangerous brain powers, or right now you'd be in 1,000 little pieces.
Good morning. Now prepare to experience the most outrageous man on radio.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Okay.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale.
This is insane.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
Hey, how's it going? How's it going there? We're starting a little bit late today, 5:36 a.m. I guess it's, I don't know, is it EDT time? Right? On the 5th of, what month is it? April. April showers bring May flowers, hopefully. It's supposed to be showers today, I understand. I can give you the brief forecast for the week if you so desire. It's up to you. And since there are no viewers live right at the moment, let's just...
The Weather Watch forecast.
Let's just do it anyway. It's currently 37 degrees in my neck of the woods. 70% chance of rain today. And it's going to get a high of like high 50s, low 48. Tomorrow, 20% chance of rain. Thursday, 90% chance of rain. Friday, 40% chance of rain. Saturday, 50% chance of thunderstorms. It's going to be anywhere from the 40s to the high 50s. And it looks like the weekend is going to it's going to chill down. Like the high on Saturday so far is predicted to be 43 and a low 34, which means a frost. So it doesn't give me much of an opportunity to do anything in my backyard. And my cold weather planting, which I was hoping I was going to get a chance to do, isn't going to happen.
The Weather Watch forecast.
And like I tell you all the time, I'm in the mid-Atlantic state, so, just take that forecast, subtract a little if you're north of here, and add a few degrees if you're south of here. And if you're east of here, you'll probably get rain, right? And if you're west of me, say the Ohio Valley area, you're probably getting rain right now because it hasn't started to rain here yet. And usually for the most of those patterns they go, west to east, in generally speaking. Unless you've got one of those like weird nor'easter things that, whatever. The coffee's extremely hot today, temperature-wise. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing or whatever kind of thing. It's like I could feel it burning my esophagus, my esophageal cavity. Anyway, that's that. So,
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And, what else can I say? It's another day, another dollar. I thought I would just do this enlarged version of Then What. We talked about that yesterday, where I explained Then What, which is the title of my most recent book, which came out towards the end of last year. It's basically this year's book. Assuming I write another book later this year, this is the current book on the market. This and Codex, which is still active and apropos. I would buy both those books in tandem personally, but let's not talk about sales. It turns people off, even though they're cheap, and it sounded like I belched. I really didn't.
Really funny. Really funny.
So juvenile, these guys. So juvenile. I mean, come on. Give me a break. So,
after he's talked, we must get rid of him immediately.
So, anyway, Yeah, it's the answer to the question, it's that no one wants to hear. And the question they cannot answer, as I put in the subtitle here. And of course, that book is an adventure for your mind. And this show is always an adventure for your mind. It's a free flow of consciousness. It's unscripted. I haven't a clue what I'm going to talk about. I really don't. I gave my cat some wet food today. Went to the vet yesterday. I don't know, it's like they didn't really say anything. They sent him home with some probiotics, but I don't know if I'm going to give them to him. I don't like that because it's like capsules and another one of these injection things that it just freaks him out so much. But that is one of those things, that if we continue some of the conversation from yesterday, and yes, we could get cut off at any given time. Yesterday, if you notice, there are two shows. There's a part two. Part two is the actual show because I didn't even, I just wrote off part one, but I didn't bother deleting it like the prior day, in which case they had interrupted 2 or 3 shows and I basically just deleted them. Because I said, the heck with this. And then I did, I guess I did a 4th show, a 3rd or a 4th show. I called it part 3, but really, or take 3, but I think it was like take 4. So I don't know what's going on right now. As of right now, we have an excellent connection. The internet's fine. The weather's fine. My CPU's a little bit high, but I don't have any other programs open. So I mean, it's not super high. 9%, under 10% CPU usage. That means 90% free, right? 30 broadcasting at 30 frames per second, and my kilobytes per second are over 2,500 on average. 28 just jumped to 28. So. There's no technical reasons why there would be a problem with my signal at all. So it's clearly the past couple of days they've just been, getting more aggressive. I noticed there are some changes when you put together your live stream. There are some changes to allow it under the allowing comments section from a creator standpoint. They changed the UI, user interface, but the creator's user interface. I don't know what that is. There's something about stricter comments. I think because somehow, and I'm not 100% sure, that they're trying to blame the person who creates the content, in other words, me, if someone comments something that they don't feel is, follows their rule book, right, that they could take that out on me, right? So in other words, I'm responsible for some random person who makes a comment. Think about that, right? And it's all this fear. I guess they're building up to this idea. I guess they don't like the idea that Elon Musk bought like 9+% of Twitter, and that there's a movement to try to encroach on social media, and that they're expecting that there may be changes in the coming year or years. But I think most people in general should get out of their mind the idea of the coming year or years. Because I think you ought to worry about getting through this week, next month, and this year, the rest of this year. I find that discussion I see, it's all the time people are talking about these things in the future. And whether or not it's positive or what some of us would think of negative, like this, like Agenda 2030 or something like that, some of these ideas. I saw something Biden talking about a coal car. I mean, did he watch my video or something? I don't know. Coal cars. a steam engine. I mean, this guy's like, he's lost it. That guy's really lost it. So far, the coffee's staying hot. So far, the cat kept his food down. That's what my main concern is. But what I'm trying to get at with this is that when you're in a situation of runaway inflation, meaning the cost of things have skyrocketed beyond the average person's ability to pay. Though at the present time, the poor, the extremely poor, the welfare person is getting the safety net, is providing for them the basic needs. And it's a question of whether or not someone who is, in that safety net has the intestinal fortitude, to live within their means and isn't sitting in front of a television all day long watching TV commercials or scouring the internet or looking at influencers, I guess, on Instagram or wherever they are these days, TikTok. I don't know. I don't watch those things. I mean, I'm aware of them. I've seen them. I don't like to talk about something that, I don't criticize a thing I have not seen. But that the types of things that they are being influenced to purchase, or the lifestyle that they are being influenced to emulate. There's somebody talking outside my window. Why they would choose to stop here and talk. And it's too dark for that camera that I have. I do have camera 2, like a camera 3, that might pick up something like that. I'm half tempted to put it on, just out of curiosity, because I haven't used this in a while. It's just that it's a royal pain, and it doesn't always, it brings up no, I'm not going to do it, because it'd be an excuse if my internet drops out. It'll be an excuse for it to not have been YouTube. Which, by the way, I have not done that in the previous 2 episodes, in which case that were just cut out. Cut out. Crazy. It might be somebody waiting for a bus. There's a 6:00 bus. It's 5:48 a.m. right now, and there's usually a bus that comes like just before 6:00 across the street. That's what's going on. And anyway, what I'm saying is that if you're poor, all right, or if you're on a limited budget, then you have to learn to live within that budget. And, and I've done this, 1,000 times, and I'm really not exaggerating when I say that. But I've gone to my book, and I've shown this thing. The monthly budget, which is why I say in the Then What print version, okay. Yeah, there's the bus out there. I was right. I was correct. A loudmouth at a bus stop. That now more than ever, you really need to keep a budget and live by a budget, because you're going to be surprised. I was surprised. I have a banking problem this morning. I woke up expecting, I don't know why, I just checked my bank balance for the sake of it, and I found out I had negative $2 and something in it. And I'm waiting for them to charge me an extra $37.50 like bounce check fee on top of that, so that the money I transferred, I think that's what they were waiting for, they're going to take that. I'm going to end up with this. I have 2 payments due before I receive my payment, my income for this month, which means I am basically will have lost, I don't know, $100. I'm going to start the month off $200 in debt, something like that. And oddly enough, well, it's not really odd. It is odd. This quarterly, April is a quarterly month in which I have 2 extra payments. Every quarter I have 2 extra payments I have to make, right? Quarterly bills, put it that way. And so I don't have an extra $200. And that's the system we live in, live under. Even though I have my house, my mortgage, taxes, and insurance are only $200 a month, which is impossible for the average person to even grasp, right? But you still got bills. There's the coal trucks. This is coal truck time. Coal train. And that's not jazz. So, first of all, you got to learn to live within your budget now more than ever and stop worrying about things to come, right? And that's this thing that just blows my mind. It's the idea of euphoria. That's what these people who are loudmouths, the protesters who are complainers, the agitators, right? They all have this idea, well, we're going to do this and we're going to, it's going to be utopia. This is like, communism 101, these failed ideas where hundreds of millions of people were killed over the past centuries, right? Following these ridiculous ideas, the promise of utopia, right? Only to put in some despot, and to live under tyranny and end up, whether it was world wars or just, starvation, suffering, and outright murder of hundreds of millions of their own people. And it, because we've taught our students how to take tests so that you can get funding for the teachers union and the administrators so they can have their pensions. I mean, right? So that's basically what it is. Teachers become prompters for the administrators to make sure that the flow of money comes into the school system, and they're doing it because they've got houses and mortgages and things to take care of and bills to pay. And that's the chain of existence right now. But because of that, these students are unaware of, the in-depth analysis of what these isms have done to people. And when you talk about hundreds of millions of people dying under communism, right? And these ideas of National Socialism and fascism, it's and to see people on the streets who are basically are the fascists and the National Socialists and the communists and the socialists, right? Though they pretend they're the complete opposite. They just simply don't know. It's functional illiteracy. And I know, it's a title on one of the cartoon thumbnails, what I call title cards to my show. If you look at all my videos, there's a link to videos on ROCKFLUX.com. If you look at one of the cartooned ones where I have a bubble coming out of my, speech bubble, it basically, to paraphrase, I'm not looking at it, it says, I know why people don't watch these videos. Apart from the fact that they're shadow banned and I'm on page, 1 million, right? If you did a search. And if you did a search, even if you do an exact search, and we've done that live on here, it's, unless you personally have been there or know me or whatever, I don't come up. I might show up if you do an exact, really precise search. I may show up on the page, but I'm not the first one at the top. And that is that says it all. right? So that's that's speech being, abridging free speech, which according to the First Amendment, not even Congress shall make a law doing that. And I know this sounds repetitive to regular listeners, but if Congress, the lawmaking body of the country, can't abridge free speech, then no one can. The only way to abridge free speech would be for there to be an amendment to the Constitution. You can't pass a Section 230. You can't, you can't give someone some kind of protection. You see, it's not, in other words, I always brought up prohibition. In other words, when they passed the law about prohibition, there were no exceptions to the rule. The only way they could make drinking legal in the United States again was to pass an amendment that said now you can drink, right? Or abolishing the other amendment. And while that's clear as day, while from a legal standpoint, it's like there's not even an argument to be made. You could not argue that in a court. The problem is no one is taking it to court. No one is arguing it. Right? But that just brings us back to this. Okay, so then what? What you can't see here is the question mark. Obviously, this is a question. And so this utopia, this new version of communism, socialism, fascism, national socialism, whatever you want to talk about, these youngins who have no education whatsoever, half of whom are functionally illiterate according to the Department of Education and various other agencies, government agencies, right? If you ask them, then what? Okay, say you get your thing that you got your little protest sign out there. We want this, we want that. Then what? Say you get your student loan forgiven. Then what? What are you going to do? What about the world you live in? What about the way things are? How's that going to change things for you? Oh, I'll have extra money. I'll be able to pay my bills. No, you're not. You don't even have a job. You want your student loan forgiven, and then you want the government to give you a free $1,000 or $1,200 a month, which wouldn't even pay your rent. So then what? Do you see what I mean? You don't have to pay your student loan right now, technically, you fill out the paperwork and you tell them you're broke, and, they give you whatever. What is that, a 6-month extension or something? And people just keep renewing and renewing and renewing, and you renew it until the day you die. Right? Or you get a job and then they they garnish your wages. But garnishing wages is not the, the worst thing in the world, because it's such a small, paltry amount of money that it doesn't matter. In fact, I was paying when I had a small student loan. It wasn't that big. And I had gotten, I don't know what they do with people these days, but I got a booklet. They used to love to give these booklets where you tear out the coupon and you include that coupon. And each progressive coupon showed by paying this one what your balance was or whatever. And send the coupon with the check into whatever. I guess the banking institution or however you got your loan, right? And I did that for a while. I moved around a lot. And then maybe I was in between jobs. This is when I was young, right? I mean, student loan. This was out of college type of thing. And somewhere along the line, I don't know, I lost that booklet, or it wasn't on my mind. I was doing something and then I was working somewhere. And then all of a sudden, somebody, the person somebody, in the accounting department or something came to me and said, your wages, we've got a letter that your wages are going to be garnished for the student loan by this bank or something. And I looked at the amount and I'm like, yeah, all right, I forgot about that. Yeah, fine, thanks for telling me, right? And actually, what I did was I was the type of guy, I was valuable to the company, and I actually had the company give me a little bit of raise to compensate for the slight loss. But that was just something on the side that I'm now recalling. I remember that. But that didn't matter because they can't take away your like cost of living, your basic costs. So the amount of garnishing of a wage is not, it doesn't put you in the poorhouse. It's just not how the system works. It doesn't work that way. It's the same with what people don't know about Social Security. We did this once here before for senior citizens, that people on Social Security or on, Social Security disability veterans and other people who may be receiving Social Security, that debt collectors, credit card companies and collection agencies, they cannot even touch your Social Security at all. It's illegal, still illegal under the law. But they do with this student loan thing. They have a way of doing that with student loans if it's through some government, somehow government sanctioned type of thing. The government could do whatever the hell they feel like, even though we are supposedly the government. But they also cannot take away the amount of money you need to live. You see? So it's a non-issue in effect. I mean, after all, you took out the loan, someone was telling me the veterinarian I think that my cat went to had a $500,000 student loan. Doctors and people like that. They get ridiculous student loans. And that's why the costs of visits to doctors or vets, are so high. It's all basically because these people are trying to pay back their student loans. It's ridiculous. It's the same with inflation, and I talked about it yesterday. The cost of lumber hasn't gone up, right? A tree is a tree is a tree. They grow all the time, and they fall down all the time, and forests need to be managed and cleared in order for new growth. And that's basically what lumber is. And I know I don't want to sound like a commercial for a paper company or somebody who's involved in, chopping down trees. But if you really look into it, they plant more trees than any other group, more than these so-called organizations, that are involved in tree, planting trees, put it that way. So it's a renewable resource, right, in effect. And it's the same kind of thing. So why would the price of lumber go up? Well, you're saying transportation, but that's not true, because in most areas, that it could be true in certain areas, very remote areas, but maybe not even in remote areas, because there's a chance that if the area is that remote and forested, there probably are what they call like Tom Sawyer. They are sawyers. A sawyer is somebody who, a mill who works the saw, right? That takes lumber, puts it on this sawmill, and in effect creates boards out of that lumber, right? And then there's other factors where they could take these pieces of wood and create like particle board and stuff like that. But the thing is, the price of the tree has not gone up. The tree exists. It is just a thing, and forests are cleared all the time. In fact, we don't clear enough forests, and that's why California has had such a problem, because of their poor forest management. If they would take those trees, clear out those areas in between, that would open up the canopy. It would allow for new growth, new trees. Some trees grow pretty darn fast too. You'd be surprised, or get to a height, So that's good forest management. That's stewardship, right? Same with national parks. That's stewardship in national parks by preserving them and allowing for new growth, the natural cycle of life. So there's no reason for prices of lumber to have doubled, tripled, or, quadrupled. And it's the same. And how do you, because transportation is not an issue in many areas. It's like when I say everything up here, everything is wrong. It's like, well, almost everything is wrong, or everything is kind of wrong, for the most part. You could qualify that, right? Now, you don't know what you don't know. That's a fact, Jack. And I would highly recommend you get that shirt, though you missed out on the 20% off, which I was telling you about. So you blew it there. Could have gotten shirts, hoodies, hats, all that kind of cool stuff for 20% off. But that special ran out. Too late, I believe. Yeah, I'm certain, actually. So, it's the same with foods, certain foods. Now, if you're obsessed with eating like kiwis or something like that, yeah, there's a transportation charge on there that's going to call, and there's a possibility of distribution delays and whatnot, because you're pulling those from, they're out of season and they're out of something not grown in your state. And so one of the things, that goes along the line, and I'm going to keep this, I'm not going to go all over the place, so let's get back to where we started, about the budget. One of the key things about keeping in your budget, and like I say, surviving and thriving today, not this, everybody's always talking about, well, this year, or the 2022 elections, 2024, or whatever, blah, blah. Worry about today, this weekend, tomorrow. You know what I mean? Next month. 6 months from now, this summer, the fall, the winter. Okay? Forget about politics. Politics is nothing. These people are, they're liars. They don't do what they say. So you want to make a budget, and part of budgeting is, if you want to live within a time when where we have like what we call runaway inflation and economic problems, because we live in a society where we have bills, right? We have a ridiculous amount of bills. Like I said, they just screwed me over. In fact, I have to look into this. I always pay this thing that they deducted a month in advance. And so somewhere in the algorithm in the banking system, they somehow must have recorded the payment I made as a extra payment, not as the payment. And so they decided to automatically deduct this payment on the second or something like that, in which case stole $60-some out of my account, put me in the red, and then then later on they'll add like a bounce fee, so it becomes $100 negative. And then I have close to $100 worth of bills that are come doable before I get my payment, my monthly check, all right, which is my income, all right, which usually comes the second week of the month. And so I'm going to be $200 out starting the month. And I've already budgeted out this month that's fairly even, because this was, but they're going to screw me over. So I have to like borrow $200 somehow. And then pay interest and be indebted and be behind the eight ball. So you have to not only have a budget, but you have to mind that budget, and you have to be aware that these algorithms in the banking system and everywhere, they're created. They're like these little, just imagine like when you see these sci-fi nanobots, they're like these little things that are constantly sifting through all kinds of data, everything to do with you and your life, and just looking for your you to slip up, right? And you slip up over a millisecond of not making a payment on a right at the proper time, and then gotcha, right? But the other thing within your budget is to eat the food you eat, right? Because, whether you're living alone or you have a family, you want to eat foods that are in season. And by saying foods that are in season, obviously that would be growing in your area, within your state. So then they can't use the excuse of inflation due to high gas prices, transportation problems. So there may be something that you prefer, but if blueberries aren't in season, don't eat blueberries. Eat whatever. Eat an alternative to blueberries. And there are alternatives to everything. And so in the fall, when it's apple season, in fact, there's, depending upon where you live, I know where I live in a big swath of the U.S., apples are fairly common. And in apple season, you can go to many orchards and pick apples and come home with a bushel basket of apples. But you could also go to the grocery store and look at the bag of apples and turn around the back and see if they are locally. And when I say locally, I mean if they're coming within, so many miles of you, right? If it has even just your state, if it's from your state. And so if the price would be exorbitant on there, you're being ripped off. Because you can't be saying, oh, there's a shortage or they're adding, transportation charges to it. And so for most part, that's how you get, and as far as things like lettuces and chard and kale and all of that kind of stuff, man, that grows everywhere. Everywhere. I grow it in my backyard. I have a rodent problem I have to deal with, which is really a nightmare. I mean, it's a nightmare. I had trouble going to sleep last night because this is just on my mind. I don't know how I'm going to get rid of this. That is another $200 expense. I've got to build up. I've got to get bags of cement, mortar, thick boards. I've got to raise my raised beds higher. I have a fence I still have a section of fence that's wire fence. I have to shore that up a couple of feet, with 2x8 or 2x12 thick boards. These things can't gnaw through. And if they do gnaw through an area, I've got to put a metal plate there. Or if they try digging under, I have to put concrete under there with rocks and pieces of metal and stuff. I mean, I have an attack plan. I'm ready for battle on this one. But now I'm out $200 because the bank screwed me over. So I'm going to go into debt $200, and I got to somehow come up with an extra $200. Before it's all said and done, I'm going to be at $500 in debt. Starting, next week, because I got to do this soon because it's planting season next week, right? It's the middle of April. Cold weather crops, things like Swiss chard, kale, lettuce, and stuff. That you put that stuff in the ground now, right? Because once it gets hot, you lose. They bolt. Things like lettuce bolts. So if I want to be eating salads in May and June, right, a couple of months of my own salads, fresh salads from my garden, there's two things that have to happen. A, I've got to plant it, and B, I have to make sure there's no rodents in there so that the food I'm eating is not filled with some sort of exotic disease that's going to kill me or get me deathly ill. I don't even want these things crawling through my garden. You understand? So, but anyway, the point of the matter is, assuming I solve that problem, which I believe I will, the idea is anyone can grow lettuce. I grew kale in my closet that has no windows and it's cold in the wintertime, and I ate it in a salad, several salads. in my house. Kale. And then I took that plant that I was pulling leaves off, and I put that in the ground like 2 weeks ago. I have that covered and kind of protected, and it's doing fine. So you understand there's a lot of these things that happen, this price gouging that's going on, that's not realistic and that it can't be justified. But there are some things that can be justified. If they don't make refrigerators in your state or in your, nearby, then that's being trucked in over state lines or over long distances. So yes, you're going to pay more for that product, or there's going to be a delay, right, in getting it. So, in some instances, there's nothing you can do about it. Something breaks down, you need one, and then you can't get it. But generally speaking, you need to have a physical budget like I showed you in my book, which is this, then what, here. You get buy the print copy and you get a budget that you can use, make copies of it, right, for each month, and live by that budget. They're still going to try to screw you. Like I say, I get screwed over too, even though I'm on top of this stuff. But fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So yeah, maybe once in a blue moon they'll get me. But that just puts my radar on, extra sensitive. The white handkerchief is used to keep the mustache clean from coffee. All right.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Now, I know a lot of this stuff to some people is just common sense, but, it's a point of departure. This is a flow of consciousness show. So, I don't mean to insult your intelligence. But, we have to look at the world to see what people don't do. And maybe these are the kinds of things that you actually should be talking about among people you know. Because they just might not be aware of it. Maybe you ought to get them a copy of my book. All right? And say, and just bookmark the budget page. If they want to read the rest of it, it's up to them. Right? Or buy the book and make a copy of the budget page and give them to them. Keep the book for yourself. But that's how this works, and that's what I'm trying to say is that you have to have your radar on, and you've got to buy local whenever you can. You got to grow in your own yard or on your porch or in your window if you can. And if you can't do any of those things, you have to make sure that the things that you do purchase, you purchase things that are in season. And I'm talking about fresh fruits and vegetables and things of that sort, because those are less likely to have these surcharges on, these delivery charges, right? Destination charges, I think some people call them, right? And secondly, you have to, at all costs, avoid processed foods. Now, the problem with that is 95% of what's in the grocery store. I think someone did a study of this, a university study. It was written up in a paper, a peer-reviewed paper, where they went through and they looked through the number of items. And it seems at first it might sound counterintuitive. You would say, well, I don't know. I walk in the grocery store and the first thing you see is this big produce section. But if you count the amount of items in the produce section compared to as you walk up the bread aisle, right, and the various canned goods processed aisles and the cereal aisle and an entire aisle dedicated to potato chips and pretzels, right, and that kind of thing, the sheer number of items that are processed, boxed, the frozen food sections, the frozen pizzas, the frozen waffles, the frozen sausages, whatever. Ice cream, a complete frozen section of ice cream. Processed. High fructose corn syrup. Do you see? that the sheer numbers, you'll find that 90+% of the things in the grocery store are processed, and basically is the reason why I say in every show, and I'm not going to stop saying it, 40,000 people, upwards of 40,000 Americans die every week of preventable ailments. Preventable ailments. I mean, I don't even want to call them because they're not really diseases. You know, in other words, heart-related problems. Okay? Type 2 diabetes, obesity-related problems, diabetes itself, kidney-related problems, right, that develop into, you know, that they create as some kind of, you know, call it a disease. Cancer, which they call a disease, but it's basically fed by sugars and these poisons, these weed killers and bug killers and additives and GMO additives. Why go through the extra expense of spraying your crops when you could just genetically modify a seed and have, you know, the weed killer incorporated in the seed, so as the seed grows, it kills. It's a weed killer and a food in once. It's like that old commercial for certs. It's a breath mint. It's a candy. It's two things in one. You know? It's a lettuce seed. It's a bug killer. No, it's a bug killer and lettuce in one. It's not funny. It's killing people. It's causing people to have cancer. I've got a right to say these. You know why I've got a right to say this? Because you have a right to say it, because you're a citizen of this country and you're a victim of this. But I have just as much a right to say it too, because I got cancer and I had to have a radical prostatectomy. Okay? And I, up to the point when that happened, all my scores, PSA scores, were like way, way low, 0, 0, 0. Suddenly cancer. You know, and I've got this neighbor who's like in love with weed killers and's got every chemical in the world. And I grow a garden and I wonder how much, you know, I may be wrong, but spraying that stuff, all this water coming into my yard, coming through where she's afraid of a dandelion. Eat your dandelion leaves. Put them in your salad. They're healthy. They're good for you. It's good for your liver. It's good for your gallbladder. When they want to take my gallbladder out, I had kidney operation. You know, kidney stone that was. You see what I mean? So I'm talking to you from direct hand. It's like everything I say. It's firsthand experience. I'm not like these people, like, you know, that pull up something on the mainstream media and then on YouTube they're like, they post this tweet or this article or this video clip and then they criticize it, right? It's like, no, tell me some firsthand stories, right? Something that real, you know, do some your own reporting, and if you can't report, hire some reporters. You know, as much as I dislike the mainstream media, that's why I canceled. I don't pay for a TV service anymore. But as much as I despise these lies and deceit and propaganda coming out of the mainstream media, all right, at least they're getting their information from somewhere, or they're manufacturing or fabricating it, whatever. But at least they've gone through that process. But these people, these YouTube millionaires, as I call them, these people making money who are monetized. I'm not monetized. Okay, this thing back here, this is just that's comedy. Okay, that's a joke. That's humor. All right, it's art. This is a set. All right. Yeah, they don't even have, you know. So the idea is that I'm speaking from the heart. I'm not monetized. I'm not making money on it. Oh, yeah, but you're trying to get us to buy your shirts. They're not my shirts. It's a third party. I just found a place. It's the same with Great Solar stuff. I basically test these things and make sure they work. And then I put it on a website. And so I feel confident that I'm saying to you is, look, hey, this on-air light is being lit up by this thing that I have listed on my website, which you can't see. It's in the dark there, but, we'll just go over there for the heck of it, right? Let's go to display capture. I haven't done this in a while. New window. Let's go to Great Solar Stuff. All right, Great Solar Stuff. This is my site that you see the logo. See, same logo that's on my page. And I'm showing you this thing, but I tell you right out front, handpicked and tested by our team. Who's our team? Well, our team is me and, some friends and family that I've shared these things with or gifted to. But you click on them, and it's basically, I've have a link to Amazon where you can buy it. So, like, here's the one, this one that's charging my, currently charging my system. Boy, they raised the price on that thing. Wow. That price is doubled. I paid I paid $199. The price went up like $20. That's not bad. It's still less than $1 a watt. But anyway, that is the thing that's powering my on-air light. And it's the same with these solar panels. And I have one of these things too. A weather radio. $31. That's pretty cheap. And if you take a look at that thing, all the stuff it does. Emergency charge your cell phone. There's a little solar panel on it. It self-charges. It's a wind charge. It's an AM/FM radio, weather radio. I use that a lot because I got a leaky roof. You could get it in a different color, I guess. And you can charge it off through the wall, in your house. I've said this before. This one I like better. I want to buy one of these. I don't have. This has a shortwave radio attached to it. That's only $39, $40. So I want to get myself one of those. But the point of the matter is I haven't tested that, but I've tested the product basically similar to that. Now here's an 1,800 watt power thing. These solar Christmas lights, I've had them on my front porch for 3 years. This solar fountain is working right now out in my backyard. I have a water collection system, and I don't have this particular water, Pro Water filter. However, I have drank from it. A friend of mine has it. I will get one. I don't have the money. But this is what I'm trying to explain to you is that when you see these things here, don't get the idea that I'm like somebody trying to sell you something and I'm making a fortune on it. Amazon's the one who's making money on this stuff. I get a commission. You know what they give you a commission? Like if you buy a shirt, I deal through a shirt company. I'm lucky if I make 50 cents or $1. You listen to my music, my songs. Sometimes it's a fraction of a cent or a penny royalty. You buy one of these devices, maybe I would make $1 commission. I don't know. Sometimes, I haven't to date, so I don't know if anybody's buying anything. But what I'm trying to get at is at least I'm out here, testing things, talking to you, and trying to guide you through things. When I say that the power grid is in bad shape, you should have some backup power. And then I see storms happening all the time, and these people in this panic, oh my God, we have no power, we don't know what to do. I say, well, if you, and this means you, would have shared this show with, 10 of your friends, right? Maybe, and they shared it with 10 of their friends, or whatever. Maybe the word would get out that those people could have had that $200 instead of wasting $200 on some goofy gadget that they saw on, a must-have piece of clothing or some stupidity, accessory of some kind. Garbage truck. Taking my garbage bag. I have a really heavy garbage bag. I hope it doesn't fall apart. Well, looks like they got it. Today was garbage day. That's one less thing to worry about. I'm feeding my cat, who's still hanging out with me. I think he's happy that I gave him wet cat food today. I just hope he keeps it down. But what I'm trying to say is that I'm not monetized on YouTube. If 1 million people watch this episode, I won't make a penny. Not even a penny. Not a fraction of a cent. And it's the same with my books. They sell for like $9.95. I make them as low as I possibly can. Like, you have to, like, they demand that you like have it a certain price because Amazon, they're available on Amazon.com. I have 10 books for sale I've written. And so, pricing those books, you're like kind of under their thumb to price them a certain way. And so the commission on that book, if it sells for $9.95 or something weird like that, I'd be lucky if I make $1 something or something like that. But the idea is this is service to others instead of service to self. And I think that's what we do. I'm trying to help you out. I have no other reason to do this, no other motivation. I mean, I guess it's my thing to do in the morning. It's a reason to get up. You got to do something. It's cold weather. You heard the weather forecast this week. I'm stuck in the house this whole week, right? And I'm broke. And I'm going to be forced to be eating stupid things like pasta and stuff. Things I have in my cupboard. I don't have any fresh vegetables, right? I can't have any salads. I just don't have it. I'm out of it, right? And my money, and they just stole my money. So even like I'm being honest with you, even keeping a good budget, you're still going to have to be extra cautious. And they're still going to find a way to like somehow pull the wool over your eyes. Like raising an item by $20, $20, like that item I just showed you. I paid $20 less for that Jackery thing that's powering my on-air light and had all my Christmas lights and all those things under there. It's a great device. I've been using it now for the better part of the year. Very low. I've only had to charge it a couple of times, and it's been holding at 98% charge, right? These things have a life expectancy of at least a decade or more. I've had a previous version that I bought like 15 years ago or something. I believe I got a good 15 some years out of that, and had a couple situations, power down situations, where it more than paid for itself. Because at the last, 2 places ago, like I say, I've had different jobs and I've lived in many different cities. But I believe it was about 2 or 3 places I lived before. There was a power outage that lasted over 2 days. And I was able to use the previous version of this thing. This was about 15 or more years ago, right? And I was able to use that to run fans, lighting, and actually at that time I had satellite television, and my satellite receiver and my screen, my TV, my LED TV or whatever. And I was able to do that for basically 2 days. I mean, not nonstop, but for 2 days, I was able to, for a substantial amount of time. Me and a friend were able to like watch a movie. If the power's out and everybody else is like twiddling their thumbs, they don't know what to do. They're going batty. And we're sitting at my bar. I always build bars where I live. And we're sitting at the bar, having a couple of beers, watching a 2-hour movie. And it was summertime, and I had a little fan also plugged into this thing, so there was like a fan on us. And so we were kind of semi-cooled down by this fan, had the back screen open, air circulating, watching a movie. It was time to go to bed, and basically carried the thing into the bathroom as a light, and the bedroom plugged a lamp into it. You see what I mean? For a couple $100. And you think about the things you wasted a couple $100 on, or if you put it on a credit card, like, most of us do in some cases. I only keep one credit card. I don't, I get out of that scene where But the point is, it could be minimum payment, or you pay $20 a month for it. For that security that if the power goes out, you're fine. You have the basic electricity. And, there are more expensive versions of that will actually run your refrigerator. 1,800 watts with like a 3,600 surge, because you got to be conscious of like certain appliances, or if you use it for tools or things like that. When you first turn them on, there's a surge. So it's not just what it's rated at wattage-wise. It's like you want to have it almost doubled, and that one of the ones I have listed on that place is like that. But again, I tell you this stuff just for your own, security and your own peace of mind, not for me, because if you get it, you're the one that's going to benefit by it. A couple of bucks isn't going to save me. You see what I mean? A couple of dollars commission. These aren't my companies, all right? I'm not making 50% on these things. I'm making like 1% or 0.5%. And like I say, the music business, they're the worst. You listen to my song on Spotify, I'm lucky if I get a penny. Sometimes it's like 0.0 something, a fraction of a cent. It's pathetic how the music business works. Same with YouTube, with music. But I'm not monetized. They refuse to monetize me, and they've changed the rules since anyway. You got to have 1,000 subscribers even to qualify. But before that, they wouldn't monetize me. And that's a longer story. I did an episode on it. But anyway, you've got a budget. You've got to buy things that are in season, and you want to buy things that are somehow locally sourced or sourced nearby. And in this way, you can live within a certain amount, a minimal budget, and maintain, or at least maintain your lifestyle in times when you have this like runaway inflation. You just have to be more conscientious. That's all, And that's one way of doing it. They're still going to figure a way to get you, right? But at least you'll be kind of semi-prepared, and you'll be able to recover. At least the next month you'll be able to recover, whereas someone else could be devastated or just depressed. I need to have blueberries. I need to. There's other things. They probably grow strawberries where you are. Eat strawberries. They're healthier for you. They're better. Strawberries and blackberries are actually, I think, are higher in fiber and less sugar. Blueberries that you get today, a lot of those are grown. It's almost like candy. I was making that mistake. I was eating cereals that I thought were whole grain cereals. And I wasn't reading. I was looking. I buy them by the box. Whole grain, whole grain oats, non-GMO, all natural ingredients, gluten-free, right? And I'd put some blueberries in there. And one day I decided to read the box, excuse me, and I noticed that the carbs, there was like 35 or 40 grams of carbs, and I don't know what it was, 15, 16, 18 grams of added sugars. And I was putting blueberries in there, which are basically, like I said, it's sugar. It's, and it's not a lot of fiber in there like you get in like a strawberry or a blackberry or something like that. At least you're getting fiber, and there's certain effects, that the fiber interacts with carbs and things like that. There's a deduction, there's a formula. You deduct the fiber from the carb or something like that. I'm not going to get into that, but all I'm trying to tell you is I found out, I was wondering why I was like gaining weight, when I was eating healthy and I was gaining weight and maybe, and not, feeling my best. Right. And it turned out I was basically over sugaring myself. So I cut out cereal altogether because it's all processed. I was eating whole oats, Quaker whole oats. I thought they were good for me, and I found out they were high in carb. Carbs are sugars, just another name for sugars. Unless you're working out and you're doing something, that the way to metabolizing, certain things, they're just not good for you. And most of us aren't. I mean, just look at our society today. Right? It's sedentary. People actually go to the gym because they have sedentary lives. They get up, they get in their car, they drive to work, they sit in an office or a carrel, or even if they work at a factory, they stand in one place, maybe walk around somewhere, have a lunch break, right? Come home. A lot of times they're just really tired. If they have kids or something like that, they got to prepare meals or do this, that, the other. They sit in front of a TV because they're beat for the day, and they order a takeout pizza, I mean, and again, even the people who do work out and go to the gym and have these gym memberships and stuff, you got to have money for that. That stuff's not cheap. And this is the thing. Let's look at the world from a realistic standpoint. This show is not written for Elon Musk, all right? He doesn't have these problems, okay? It's not written for the ruling elite, for the politicians that do insider trading and make millions of dollars on deals on stocks and real estate, right? For the bureaucrats in Washington that do the same thing. They have inside trading. They know what's going on, and they use that to their advantage. But it's our taxpayers that pay all of those people's salaries. So, no, this show is for the average person who's just trying to get by. And I'm telling you that there are more people now who think of themselves as maybe even upper or middle class, think that they're well off, that are in for a big surprise because, we might as well do it. We do it, at least once a week or every 2 weeks. But,
People, you sit there, you're in for one big surprise. People, you sit there, you're in for one big surprise. People, you sit there, you're in for one big surprise.
Yeah. It's the truth, though. As funny as that is, it's the truth. So, look at the sun has come up. You can see these coal trucks returning now. Now you can actually see the bodies of them. And you can see my street. It's a hardware store across the street. There's an apartment building. It's like a 2 units that some couple is remodeling. I guess they're going to pick that up when the weather gets nice. They started to re-side it. But I'm sure that's going to be a rental unit. And next to it, you can't see it, but there's a rental, another apartment building. A brick one, a nice one that's empty right now. It's just that the person that owns that one is... checks references, so they'd rather not rent out than have someone destroy it. But those would be good apartments. I bet you can get an apartment there for under $500, around $500 a month. Imagine that. This isn't such a bad place to live. I'm on the outskirts of town, and apart from that truck traffic, all right, because this used to be a neighborhood, but it's just a lot of traffic. But the thing about it is, it's not there on the weekend. On the other side of me is a doctor's office, too. I just walk to that doctor's office for my annual checkup type of thing. I have a weirdo living my next door neighbor's a weirdo, but I mean, stuff like that happens. What can you do? Right? But it's affordable. $200 a month mortgage, taxes, and insurance. You can't beat that. So, anyway, you have to take care of yourself, and you've got to have a budget. You've got to basically get locally sourced foods. And you have to be more, you have to think about the immediate future, not the distant future. Forget about politics as that being a solution in the cult of personality. And that's the problem that people on so-called both sides of the ideologies, red team, blue team, that's where both sides are misguided. Because they're putting their faith into elections or the cult of personality, a political candidate or leader that's going to affect positive change in their mind. But in reality, they're not. They haven't. See, I don't know why people don't learn from history, even recent history. Yesterday's show, if you watch part 2, because I wasn't aware that part 1, I thought part 1 was only like, I should take part 1 down because I don't even know why it's still up there. It's the one that cuts off right at the end. But part 2, I managed to go through. It was a pretty good show. But I may just leave it there just to demonstrate how YouTube cuts you off. Somebody's got a cab ride. It's interesting. So what I'm getting at is, that cab threw me off because we do not have yellow cabs in this area. That's like really weird. But probably somebody was waiting for a bus, got tired of waiting and ordered a cab or something. I don't know. But the thing is, I'm saying is that it was the cult of personality that I was trying to talk about. If you look back just in the, the last administration before this one, okay? And, though that's, red team versus blue team, right? Red wave, there's going to be a red wave, versus blue wave, red states, blue states. You know what I'm talking about, right? Well, the thing about it is, and, this is hard for people to stomach because they don't want to hear the truth. But I was around, for the last administration, and I'm around and I'm watching what's going on now. Now, in the, things have gotten worse. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the guy, that's allegedly running this country, which is questionable, I mean, seriously, is, has got some problems, and the people that are kind of pulling his strings, like I show all the time on my show, politicians and the media are marionettes. They're puppets, and you're a puppet of a puppet if you take politicians and the media seriously. And it doesn't matter how, how good an intentions the politician has, right? Or what the party platform ideology is. It's a matter of whether or not the corporatocracy or, the technocracy, whatever you want to call it, the powers that be are going to allow it to occur. Did you see some guy was walking up the street all by himself in the middle of, early in the morning, and he had a mask on? Like, what? See, those people are permanently scarred. Permanently scarred. He's breathing in, when he could be breathing fresh air, he's breathing in the bacteria and viruses that his body wants to exhale, right? Sad. Cool morning air. I mean, there's some truck traffic there, but I didn't, at that particular moment, cool morning air, is the best you can do. But they didn't let the last guy do anything, really. I mean, there were things that were, we were better off in some ways. There's no doubt about it. The border was a little bit shored up, but it sure as heck took a long time, and it didn't last long. It was only shored up for a fairly short period of time. And by the time it got close to being, finished, then they just, the next administration came in and just negated everything, and a couple million people came through. So in other words, you stopped several 100,000 people from crossing the border the last administration, only to have the next administration let 1 million come in. So when you look at it in the aggregate, basically it failed. Right? So, we were self-sufficient as far as fuel was concerned, and fuel prices were low, and now they're completely out of control. But there's no guarantee that necessarily can change. And even if it does, it's only one facet of all of these other things. So what I'm trying to get at is the powers that be have an agenda, and it doesn't matter who the front man is, right? Who the puppet is that they put there. You see? They're going to get their way through. They're going to have, their way. They're going to have profit. Big pharma, Excuse me. The plague happened under the last administration. Okay? I watched a Sky News interview with the former head of national security and the former director of the CIA, who then became the head of the State Department. Okay, in an interview saying that as early as 2019, they had their eye on that thing. 2019, and after that, in the summer of 2019, and of course, in the fall of 2019 was that event 201, and then this thing here, we didn't really, and nothing was really done about it, even by that previous administration until the end of January of 2020. And by that point, it was too late. And so, and then all of these things were developed and pushed and rushed through under the last administration. And so people forget about that. And so there were trillions of dollars in debt and money printed, and there were lockdowns and businesses closed, and all that stuff happened under the last administration. Now, this current administration has made things much worse. There's no doubt about it. Okay? And is spending money like, like candy, or I don't know, like whatever. But the thing about it is, do you understand? We tend to remember the good things, but we don't see that there's this constant consistency that the corporatocracy, big tech, big pharma, big ag, the Fed, all right, the military contractors, right, that Wall Street, they get their way either way. And they'll give certain candidates or certain people little victories, and we tend to fixate on that. But when you look at things over the big picture, you'll say, well, actually, in the aggregate, a word I often use, where we are today, even if you take into consideration the previous 4 years prior to this administration, we're no better off. Things have gotten progressively worse in this country decade after decade after decade. In other words, I'm more concerned about the quality of life. See, the crime rate did not go down, all right, in the past decade. It went up. I would say in the past 2 decades. So you've had Democrat, Republican, Democrat, okay? Remember, under the last administration, for a spell there, you had complete control of the House, Senate, and White House. but the quality of life for the average human being has gone down. You know, in general, according to law enforcement statistics, some 2,000 people a week are murdered in this country, and most go unsolved. 40,000 people are dying, right? Heart disease is killing 650,000 people a year. Cancer's killing over 600,000 people a year, and has been, and I'm sure the numbers are growing. Diabetes, type 2 diabetes is on the rise. Obesity problem has not been dealt with. People are dying of drug overdoses. Suicides are out of control. People are having all these things. People are dying of these kidney diseases and all these, like, food-related, processed food-related, quality of life-related, yet everyone's focused on, like, technology, and technology is going to save us. Forget the smartphone, the cell phone. It's a telephone. Let's get some games on it. Okay, games, you know. Silly Rabbit, you know, games are for kids. You know, what are you even carrying that thing around for? I go down to the store, I don't even take it with me. Of course, I don't have a cell phone service. I got rid of that. I have a Wi-Fi phone, right? Voice over IP. It cost me $40 a year, not a month. That's budgeting. That's life, right? Hey, sometimes I know it's not for everybody, but you know what I mean? You have to, you got to find the things in your life that you can cut out, and the thing, you know, or the priorities of things that you do need. But the point is, no politician is going to save you, because they haven't. We all just lived through, most of us, most people listening to my voice have lived through the past, say, 7 years. Many have at least lived through the past 20 years and have watched Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat. Okay? Changing of the guard. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But the quality of life, crime, our infrastructure has gotten worse. Those are the priorities in life. See, there's people out there thinking, oh, a tax, this, that. It's about your health. When you're laying in a hospital and they've got the IV in you, and some doctor comes in and says, oh, you got a problem, we're going to have to operate. Do you think you're worried about red team, blue team? No. Trust me, I've been there a couple of times. If you're fortunate enough to have someone who comes and visits you, I've been in the hospital, I've had operations. Nobody. Do you have anybody we can call, or anybody's going to come in, or anybody going to pick you up? No. Could you arrange to have a medical van take me home? Yeah, how'd you like to live a life like that? That's my life. The one time I was in a different town when I did have someone come by. I told them, I said, here's my ATM card. If I die, just go take the money out and take my stuff and have a good life and all the best. Because money doesn't matter. Those kinds of things don't matter. And it's the same as if you have a loved one. I've said this before, but it definitely bears repeating. If a loved one of yours, even people who have, you have problems, a pet, but I mean a loved one, family member, friend, you don't care about these ideological things. You know, what happens when the power goes down because nobody's paying attention to the grid? The last administration didn't do anything, right? All these bridges that are on the verge of collapse. What happens when another bridge collapses and people die? Right? You know, what are people going to do? What are you going to do when the power goes out? When the internet's gone? Right? Are you ready to live a life without the internet? You know? What happens if, there are food shortages and you actually can't get the food you want? It's happening in parts of the country already. What are you going to do? Have you prepared for that? Do you have a garden? See, I'm not talking about prepping. I'm not talking about eating meals ready to eat, MREs and sacks of rice and stuff like that. That stuff sickens me to my stomach when I see people advertising that. This stuff will last you 20 years, and it includes rice and powdered this and powdered stuff, and it tastes good, too. No, I don't want that. Like I've said before, you can basically, if you've got a backyard grill, or if you have a balcony where you're allowed to have a little hibachi or a grill on it in an apartment complex or something like that, or if you just go anywhere, you create a fire pit, right? It's not just hot dogs, hamburgers, or steaks that you can cook on something like that. And you don't need charcoal briquettes or some kind of fancy thing that comes in a bag to use to heat those things. You could take old Amazon boxes of cardboard and sticks and twigs and make a fire, all right? It's hot enough to boil water to make yourself soup, a stew, right? Pasta meal, right? Stuff that you normally eat, right? If you got kids love mac and cheese, even though it's processed beyond processing. But the point of the matter is, in a grid down situation, in a situation like that, you need the calories, right? You got to survive, and the kids got to eat. So think about that. Right? You can do it. Just keep a pantry with your regular foods and just make sure you got, some cans of sauce or some mac and cheese and some pasta, cans of fruit and stuff, normal food, right? And if you've got an area, get some seeds where you can grow some, lettuce and kale and stuff like that. That stuff grows pretty easy, and it grows in the wintertime. I grew kale in December in when it was like 19 degrees outside in my closet with like a little grow light that's on an LED thing. And if you had one of these things that I have back here, the Jackery, let me show you. There it is there. My thumb on it. It's the thing I showed you on Great Solar. One of those things. And there's my book Codex too, by the way. But if you had one of these, which is powering that and has been powering a lot of different things over the some 400 plus shows that we've done. We're heading towards 500 consecutive shows, nearly consecutive. I took a slight break around New Year's. Or right before. Hey, Cat, you coming down? Come on down. Cat wants a visit. I'm surprised you stayed the whole time. It's virtually impossible for me to show you the cat because of the way the camera is. Like, watch for the tail. Did you see that? Yeah. He just walked across. He'll walk across again. But I don't want to pick him up because when I pick him up, he gets... I don't know if you heard him talk. Yeah, this show's just about over, so I'll be heading up. Okay? You're doing good. You need to gain weight. He was sick. He's still not... Oh, don't put your tail on my coffee, for Christ, crying out loud. Did you get anything in there? And somehow... he knocked out my sound. What'd you do? What'd you hit? I'm I'm sorry, I lost my headphones somehow. From the cat. There we go. Yeah, okay. I'm still alive. Yeah, you're more trouble than you're worth. You know that now. Good boy. All right. Well, anyway. So what I'm trying to say is, watch the tail. See? Oh, keep going. Have a seat. Why don't you just sit down instead of putting your tail in my coffee? I have no idea why the cat must go back and forth and back and forth. I mean, I guess it's a good sign. I'm afraid to drink my coffee because I don't know if its tail got in there. Oh, man. What I'm trying to say before all that, and it's nice to see him acting the way he used to, which was doing that kind of thing, is there's all kinds of ways of getting through these hard times. And we also have to come to the realization that things are not going to get much better. You know, the stock market is, you know, the amount of debt that the U.S. is in, you know, it's a thing I called socioeconomic geopolitics. Everything happens, you know, based upon that. Okay? And it's this corporatocracy, this World Economic Forum, right? The Great Reset, the UN, this Agenda 2030 thing. These are all real things. These are real organizations. They have websites. I mean, they have annual meetings, and it's public, and you could watch that. You could read their websites. You could read their books and papers and watch video clips of presentations at them, you know. Even though the media tries to pretend these things, you know, don't exist or are conspiracy theories and stuff, they're not, right? And everything they say in these presentations and on their websites are exactly the way things unfold. Never let a good crisis go to waste. You know, you've heard this before. It's like the war profiteering going on now overseas. It's war profiteering. It's weapons manufacturers needing, you know, they didn't have a war. Afghanistan ended, they needed, you know, they got to make money. And people don't like to think about that. They go, oh, no, they wouldn't allow innocent people to be killed. You know, socioeconomic geopolitics. Okay? It's real. All right? Pharmaceutical companies made hundreds of billions of dollars over the past couple of years. It really happened. Okay? You don't know what you don't know. And don't pretend that you do. I lived and worked in Capitol Hill in Washington. I lived and worked in New York City. I lived and worked in Washington, in L.A. All right? I was involved in all kinds of different things. I know these things. I only talk firsthand. Right? Like I say, I don't look to some mainstream media and then post their video or their article from their website or their tweet and then sit here and criticize it. All right? I tell you my own firsthand stories. When I'm talking about nutrition and, you know, GMOs and high fructose corn syrups and content of processed foods, and how I'm the cancer, I've had cancer and various operations, etc. It's firsthand. A friend of mine has had the same problem. I talked to another friend of mine, and their father had the problem. And then someone else said, oh, yeah, such and such did. And another relative of mine did. This stuff is on the rise. And what I'm trying to get at is that these people, okay, this cult of personality, the people you're putting your faith in and donating money to, instead of donating to a political candidate, right, or taking a trip to go, spending a couple $100 to go to a rally, you should be spending a couple $100 getting yourself a power backup from like great solar stuff. Instead of sending out $15 or $20 today to some political candidate that isn't going to make the quality of life better, you ought to get a shirt that says everything you know is wrong or you don't know what you don't know, and then wear that when you go to the store and maybe get through to people. Let somebody look at that. It's a very subtle way. It's not in their face. It's not like being some protester holding a sign. It's just a shirt. Somebody's going to notice it out of the side of their eye. Maybe it's going to get into their head and make them think. You see? That's why I do this stuff, right? I'm trying to get things across to people. It's the same with this reason I have this then what up, right? Because say your candidate wins, all right? Say the 2022 elections, are, they kick out, out with the old, in with the new. Then what? Then what? You think things are going to change? Oh, there'll be some subtle things. Maybe a few legislative things here or there. A couple of feel-good things, right? But what about the murder rate? What about the 40,000 people dying of, these processed foods? You think Congress is going to act on that? Do you understand the power of lobbyists, what we used to call K Street? That the media and politicians? I mean, look how the media literally crucified Trump, right? They impeached him twice. Congress, they impeached him twice. I mean, it was Russia, Russia, Russia. And what is it now? It's Russia, Russia, Russia again because, I mean, do you understand? They're not going, they do whatever they feel like doing. The important things, the socioeconomic geopolitics of the world continues. China still, the fact is they still have gulags, concentration camps, slave labor for products that you are buying, all right? No one's doing anything about it. No one did anything about it, all right? They stamped out freedom in Hong Kong, and they're going to eventually take over Taiwan. And you're saying, oh, well, a strong president will go in there. What, we're going to war? World War III? War? Yeah. Probably will have war because the military industrial complex is going to benefit from that. That's socioeconomic geopolitics, okay?
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
Your papers, please.
You understand.
This is insane.
It's an insane world. What was it, that Lennon line? John Lennon. It's an insane world run by insane people for insane reasons. And that a cult of personality, that however good intentioned many of these people are, there are some good intentioned politicians people pursuing politics out there. I admit that. But the fact is, they get these little victories. But in the grand scheme of things, I've lived long enough to watch that over the past several decades, things have gotten worse, and worse. And while all of this is going on, all right, while our quality of life has been diminished, while our life expectancy has been reduced, look at the cat, stuck his face in the camera there. Did you see that? Yeah, I know. I'm almost done. He wants me to go upstairs. We usually watch this show back together. Yeah, I'll be up. All right, you already ruined my coffee. Why don't you go look out the window and sit there and people will see you? Go look out the window. Yeah, I know. Here, I'll try to dip the camera down, see if they can see you. He's so low that you can't see. Oh man, what did I do? Ugh. I messed up my whole thing. I shouldn't have done that. Okay. What I'm trying to say is this. You got to look out for yourself, you and yours. All right? You have to be prepared that these times are only going to get worse in the long run. They're not going to get better. No cult of personality is going to come along. No political candidate or party or, red team, blue team is going to save you. All right? Or some ism. People who have these ideas. They think, oh, right, old ideas that they don't know anything about. That just breed tyranny and totalitarianism and all that sort of thing. Authoritarian state. Crime is on the rise. More people are dying than ever before. All right? Our grid is unrepairable. Okay? We're a society that requires electricity. All right? And our electric grid is is such disrepair that we can't fix it. All right. These are the things we have to deal with. Our highway systems, our bridges, our sewer systems, our water systems. All right? Some of these pipes underneath the ground, they're hundreds of years old. They've been doing repairs on my street. 3 times they're digging. They're going to start digging again. You'll see it on this show. All right? I've already shown it on this show. My house shakes now because when they buried the pipes that they supposedly fixed, all right, they didn't know how to refill the street properly, and they have no comprehension that these big trucks come down here. So I could be sitting in the rear portion of my house and the house is shaking. I've had to hire a plumber because it shook so much that it loosened a pipe, and I had a leak in my basement. I had to pay $150 or something for a guy to put, replace that fixture. All right, times that by, this country, the miles and miles of streets. There's 330 million people in this country. All right. The Department of Education says 40% of those people are basically functionally illiterate. They break it down to 19 or 20% are functionally illiterate and another 20% have no reading skills. Or they can't read. That's basically 40% functionally illiterate. And they're probably lowballing it. So half the people don't know what's going on. We have an aging society. We've stopped pipelines. We run on people want electric cars, but they don't understand that the batteries that run those electric cars have to be charged, and pretty much natural gas that they want to outlaw by 2030 is the primary source of electricity. Solar panels and windmills didn't work, and at their height, while they were, when they were first put up, they weren't contributing to the grid. They didn't lower prices at all, but they weren't really contributing any major amount to the power grid. And by 2030, those things will just be obsolete. They will have all broken down. And you can't fix them without putting diesel fuel into cranes, right, to hoist them up, manufacture these parts, right? You can't fix bridges without melting and steel, right? The amount of heat and energy needed to do that comes from furnaces. You don't run those on solar power, windmills, right? You don't raise a giant girder, right? Build a suspension bridge, repair a suspension bridge, right? On some kind of battery powered thing. You need cranes, you need bulldozers, you need giant dump trucks, excavators, skid steers, all kinds of custom, ridiculous heavy equipment to do this, all running on fossil fuels. Do you see what I mean? There's no thought process here. The people weren't taught this in school. They honestly don't know. Even the professors, I think, don't know. I think a lot of people are just downright naive about this. The UNIPCC, they don't know what they're talking about. I don't even think they really understand that CO2 is only 0.004% of our atmosphere, that it's just a trace gas. It's a key trace gas. I don't think the vegans and vegetarians understand that the more CO2, the better if they want to keep eating vegetarian and vegan. You see? I don't think they know that 99.9% of the Earth's atmosphere is nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. I don't think they know that. I really don't think they know that. Right? I really don't think they understand. They've been to the rainforest, and like I've shown on pictures on here from expeditions I was involved in, that the rainforest is literally, as far as the eye can see, is filled with trees. So what? It's the people who've lived there have like taken some forest land down and turned it into agriculture or some kind of other production. The point of the matter is, it's a minuscule amount, a tiny fraction, because as of today, if you look with a drone at the Amazon rainforest through the Amazon, it's endless forest, and those trees are so big, everything grows so big down there. I don't think people understand that the magnetic field of the Earth is weakening, and that's the cause of additional cosmic rays coming in, to the through the atmosphere. It's our force field that it affects the jet stream, that our sun's going through long-term cycles, right? That affects us and that affect geomagnetic things. This is, people just don't understand the sun. They don't understand. Like they don't think of themselves as living. They say, save the planet. But they don't really think of it as this spinning globe, part of a solar system, hurling through space, being dragged by this big ball, They don't know this. Or if they do, it's somewhere in the back of their mind. Nobody's reminding them. And so your candidate or candidates, your political party, you're not, they're lying to you, or they're just not aware. And people are focused on like name calling and, odd issues. It's like, so you could call me any name you want to, but don't turn off my electricity, Don't make me starve to death. I don't care what name you call me. You see what I mean? But their attitude is, like as if that's the most important thing, right? Or like something that happened 400 or 500 years ago that we had nothing to do with, 90+% of the people in the United States, more than that, 90-some% of the people in the United States today didn't even have relatives or anybody involved in anything that went on 400, 500 years ago. Okay? That was the British colonialists and the Dutch slave traders and the conquistadors down south. I mean, you're talking history, ancient history. I don't blame, people today. Even the Civil War, most Europeans who came here way after that. It wasn't until like after the 1880s, closer to 1900, around the turn of that century, is when most of the major immigrants came into this country. I know I have to say this all the time because people don't know that. So they weren't even here. You can't blame them for slavery or something like that. They weren't here. They didn't have relatives here, right? Oh, but the color of their skin or something. Well, what are you talking about? That would be like blaming, an Indian, from India for something that some Indian, somebody did in India 500 years ago or 200 years ago. And saying, oh, well, some guy, people, they did this. And it was true. There were all kinds of crazy things that went on, 100, 200, 400, 500 years ago. There were a lot of wars going on in the Middle East, the Far East, in Europe, Africa, South America, right? What about Latinos? Some of them have blood of the conquistadors in them, whether it was intentional or unintentional. Most cases it was rape. But the point of the matter is it happened. And you're going to look at them and blame them for something that happened? Destruction of a culture 400 years ago, 500 years ago or something? The point of the matter is it's absurd. What you need to worry about is the immediate. You need to look at the present. You need to live in the present. You need to care about your loved ones, about the people around you, and about your own future and your survival. And stop putting faith in these cult of personality political figures, or stop pointing fingers at people who lived hundreds of years ago, right? As if that has something to do with the present. It doesn't, and it's not. It has nothing to do with bridges falling down. It has nothing to do with the fact that 40,000 people a week are dying because the FDA has approved certain things. It has nothing to do with the fact that there are weed killers and bug killers that you could buy today if you go to a box store or a hardware store, that there are lawsuits on TV saying that they are known carcinogens and that you can get a settlement if a relative of yours died from that, or you got cancer. But they're still on the shelves. All right? None of these so-called ideological things out of the past have anything to do with the fact that there's 2,000 murders being committed every week, on average, and they go unsolved. And then guess what? Most of those people are not black people or, people of color. Do you see what I'm saying? Or are they killed by cops? They're killed by criminals. All right? We have a gang problem in this country. We have crimes. There are things going on a weekly basis that are unmentionable. Look at those coal trucks. That's how your Tesla car, your GM battery-powered car is being powered, by the way. Natural gas and coal. Right? See, people are living in a fantasy world. They don't know. And they're being taught by professors and teachers who drank this Kool-Aid they don't even know. So I don't even blame them. I don't even blame some of these politicians because I think they honestly don't know. And they clearly don't watch this show. This show is hidden. And then people are afraid to talk or share this because some of the things I say might go against their candidate or make their candidate not look like the saint they want them to be. And I'm saying, no, there's nothing wrong with your candidate per se. I'm saying your candidate has no power, is powerless, okay? And I just want to remind you one thing, and I did it in the last show. Not only are the corporatocracy and the socioeconomic politics, right, the way this world is run, but just remember that the one guy that we know of in recent history who stood up and tried to do it, what happened to him? What happened to him? See, when it comes, last resort is, they'll do what they did to the last guy who tried to do things, president, right? They'll impeach you. They'll Russia you. They'll thwart you. They'll lie about you. They'll do everything they can to keep you from pushing your agenda through. But the point of the matter is, if it even gets close to the idea that you might succeed, just remember what happened here. The FBI building is named after J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover was probably, according to reputable sources, namely Robert F. Kennedy Jr., probably was involved in the death of Bobby Kennedy. J. Edgar Hoover, you can find letters. These exist. was sending letters to Martin Luther King Jr. when he imprisoned him, by the way. He was telling him to commit suicide in jail, that he was going to tell his wife that he cheated. And you might as well commit suicide because this isn't, I'm going to destroy you. This is J. Edgar Hoover. The FBI building is named after him. Do you understand the world we live in? No, you don't. It's run by socioeconomic geopolitics. It's all hypocrisy for profit. The people you believe in are claiming to have moral standards or beliefs which their own behavior doesn't conform to. It's all pretense. It's hypocrisy for profit. They are marionettes. Do you understand? The media and politicians are marionettes. And if you believe what you see in the media and you believe the politicians on either side, you're that little girl, all right, in the black jumpsuit. You're a marionette of a marionette. If you don't know what a marionette is, it's a puppet. You're a puppet of a puppet. The world is run by socioeconomic geopolitics. And if your guy or gal gets in there, guess what? My question to you is, then what? If it didn't change 5 years ago, 8 years ago, okay, 10, 20 years ago, things have just gone on a trajectory downward. The fact of the matter is crime has risen. Your life expectancy has been reduced. 40,000 people a week are dying unnecessarily, preventably. Okay? We have a bureaucracy of millions of people. All right? We can't trust our government agencies, and we certainly can't trust the puppeteers and the war-profiteers. So wake up to reality. That's the truth. That's the way it is. Okay? You don't know what you don't know. Buy the shirt, wear it, wake people up. Everything you know is wrong. I'm doing this for you. I'm not doing this to make money. I might get 50 cents if you buy the frickin' shirt. Do this. It's game over. Wear that. People wonder what the heck you're talking about. Because I'm telling you, if you don't wake up, it's game over. Ignore the media. What do you think? I have all these things all over the place, right? Crying out loud. You think I'm into some kind of gaudy thing or something? No. Get my book Codex. You'll learn a lot about AI and the hard problem of consciousness. There's Then What that actually has the book, the physical book. It's for sale, okay? It's a real thing, all right? There's stuff in there that can help you. You know what I mean? I'm not just some random guy. I got 2 CDs out there, 50 songs. Like I said, I'm coming up on 500 consecutive videos, but I've done thousands of podcasts, webcasts. I was doing podcasts before there was the thing called the iPod. We called them webcasts in the 90s. I was on the internet in 1985. Okay? 1985. That's like 37 years ago. Do you understand? I know what I'm talking about, man. I've built hundreds of websites. I've been doing this kind of thing forever. I had computers in the early 80s when they first came out. So wake up, people, right? Stop being believing this nonsense. All right? Take care of yourself. Think. You really need to think. Grab my books, They'll remind you. They're like primers, or they work in tandem with these shows. Or watch some of my shows. You can fast forward through certain parts. Sometimes idiotic stuff happens. We have a little bit of fun every now and then,
This is really funny.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, that's about it.
Good morning.
And just remember that, you can go to rockflux.com and there's links there. It's not a website of information. It's a website of links. It's a links to all the things you can do. And, I don't spell things out specifically. So go to the you go to one of the where it says go to the store for clothing. You're going to have to dig around, look through accessories, figure this stuff out. Great solar stuff, go there, get something. All right, buy through the link, and then maybe I get 50 cents. If you people would come through for me, get my book, buy some stuff, maybe I could get out of this hole I'm dug into this month and pay my bills so I don't have to borrow money from somebody. All right? And for crying out loud, if you don't do it for yourself, do it for your family, loved ones, or your pets. But wake up to reality, people. Wake up. I'll talk to you soon.